booksellers, my name is Carrie and this is Spines and Spoilers. Today I want to talk about my reading wrap-up for February and March of 2025, but first let's talk about what I am reading and drinking. First of all I'm drinking is coffee. It's not even bougie, it's like McDonald's brand coffee, but it's tasty, so leave me alone. As for what I'm reading, I've been working on Super Bloom by Nicholas Carr. It's basically about the effects that social media is having on our brain. And at this point I can testify, first person about that. I recently shut down most of my social media, or at least decided to take a break from it. And it's like this brain fog it lifted. Can't recommend enough. Anyway, a really interesting book so far. Do recommend. I'll send out a redaction if it ends up not being all that great, but so far it's good. As I'm sure you've noticed, I have a little bit more range this time. I'm using a selfie stick, and the range of motion, so you can see my very messy workstation over there, is completely wild. You can just see everything at once now. That being said, it doesn't make things more stable, so sorry about that. Moving on to the actual purpose of this video, though, the first book that I read in February of 2025 was I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I think there are 3 different Stephen Graham Jones books on this list. I'm not positive. It's pretty Stephen Graham Jones heavy, though. Also, I may have talked about this one last month for January. I honestly can't remember. I finished it at the very end of the month, so it may have made it into January. I'm not positive. It's on my StoryGraph. It's February, though, so that's what we're going with. I Was a Teenage Slasher is about a teen boy who undergoes a tragedy, and then realizes that he is turning into a slasher, has to kind of grapple with that reality and the rules that go with it, and decide whether he wants to share this fact with the other people in his life and if there's a way for him to overcome it, because it's a compulsion. He doesn't really control it. I did enjoy this one. I didn't think that the writing was quite as strong as My Heart is a Chainsaw. That entire series, love that one. That being said, I didn't dislike it. I've yet to read something by Stephen Graham Jones that I outright disliked 100% and would not recommend to someone. The next book that I read in February was A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This one was recommended to me by my girlfriend Heather. It's very short, so I guess I would call it more of a novella, but it's very short, very sweet, kind of wholesome. It's about a world where robots gain sentience, and instead of the usual scenario where they decide to become evil and take over humanity, they just decide that they want autonomy and go off into the wilderness to discover who they are, away from humans, like, as autonomous beings. And I think that's such a cool, sweet concept, and I really enjoyed it. The third and last book that I read in February is a bit of a mouthful, so I have my notebook here with me. It's Jesus and John Wayne, How White Evangelicals Corrupted a Faith and Fractured a Nation by Kristen Kebs Dumez. Whole mouthful. At any rate, I feel like this is one of those books that most people need to read. It's a great reflection on what has been going on and how we ended up where we are. Not a light, fun read, but an important one. Those were the 3 books that I read in February, so let's talk about the 8 books that I read in March. The first book that I read in March was Starter Villain by John Schulte. This is one that I borrowed from my friend Iris. I probably should have went ahead and filmed this video before I gave the book back, but it's fine. This book was adorable and delightful, and if you want just a light romp, it's great. That made it sound sexual. It is the farthest thing from that. Basically, a guy is about to lose his house and then finds out that his uncle died. He doesn't really think a lot about it because he didn't have much of a relationship with his uncle, but then he finds out that the uncle wants to give him the house, essentially. And he thinks that's it, but then somehow discovers that his uncle was actually a supervillain. I don't want to give too much of it away, but it's just the cutest story. It's got cats. There are so many cats. And yeah, I recommend looking into it if you're looking for something light. It's short as hell. You can read it in one sitting probably. But yeah, do recommend. The second book that I read in March was Before We Say Goodbye by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. It is a fourth book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I'm always a little mixed on these books because on one hand, the writing, I mean, I'm not going to say it's bad, but it is different from what I am used to. I think a big part of that is the fact that it was translated. But other than that, it just, like, they hurt me. And I don't usually go out of my way to read books that hurt me. But these are also just so sweet and wholesome. On another hand, oh my goodness, there's one about a dog. There's a short story about a dog. Anyway, these books revolve around the premise that there is a cafe which allow you to time travel. You can't change the present or anything like that. And you only have until the coffee gets cold to do what you need to do. You're not allowed to leave the table. You basically just have to think of one specific day when your loved one was there in the cafe. And you can return to that day, talk to them, and then you have to go back. If you do not drink your coffee before it gets cold, all of it, then you end up having to stay in the past as a ghost, essentially. Yeah, so it's an interesting concept. I enjoy all of them. I don't think I can give any of them a 5-star review, but they're very sweet, in some parts wholesome, but they will make you cry. The next book I read was The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enriquez. This one was rough. It was dark. It's a series of short stories written by Mariana Enriquez. They are all immensely dark horror stories. One of them's about a dead baby. I'll just go ahead and put that one out there because people should probably have that trigger warning. Yeah, look up trigger warnings in general if you decide to read this one, because some of it could be potentially extremely upsetting for some people. That being said, I loved her use of imagery. Some parts were a bit much for me, so it's another one of those where it's like, I could not give you a 5-star if I wanted to because of just how this is affecting me on a visceral level. But it's good. I'm not gonna say I enjoyed it, but it was written well, and I do recommend it to people. If you enjoy stuff like Eric LaRocca, I recommend it to you. The next book that I read in March was Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. That's right, I actually have a physical copy to hold up because I didn't just read the ebook or read a borrowed book that I had to return or a library book that I had to return. This is a library book, but I haven't returned it yet, so there. I don't know why I'm rambling. Anyway, yeah, physical book right here. I'm a real booktuber now, guys. But that's how I feel anytime I actually have a physical book to hold up. This work, however, is a novella by Stephen Graham Jones. It's a story that circulates around a group of friends. Do not be misled. It's not wholesome or cutesy. They basically stole a mannequin and played with it a lot when they were kids. They would dress it up, they would play games with them. The problem is, when they became teenagers, they kind of put him in the garage and forgot about him. One day, though, they decide they want to play a prank on one of their friends by setting him up in the movie theater. The problem is, while they're at the movie theater, it looks like he starts to move, and before the end of the movie, he disappears entirely. They have no idea where he went. So they figure out that this guy, this mannequin, came alive and is up to no good, essentially. Another one of those where maybe you want to look up trigger warnings ahead of time. Stephen Graham Jones, I would always recommend that. Absolutely always. I am discovering, though, that I like his novellas and short stories less than his actual books. I still enjoyed it. I still liked it. But it doesn't hold up to the usual standard, in my opinion. The next book that I read in March was Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones. Mapping the Interior, though, is about a young boy from an indigenous tribe who has to move away from their home, but starts to see his dead father in a lot of places. At first, he thinks that this is a good thing. He gets to see his dad again, yay! And is trying to prove that he is there because other people don't believe him. But then he starts to realize that it's something more nefarious than that. And I don't want to give away much more. This was an interesting one. I did like it more than Night of the Mannequins. I thought it had a lot more to say. That being said, there is some animal cruelty in it. Keep that in mind. It does go kind of slow at some places, oddly enough. And it's definitely one where you want to look up triggers ahead of time. I felt the same way about this one as Night of the Mannequins, in that it's a novella written by Stephen Graham Jones, and I don't feel like they are, on average, as strong as his actual books. That being said, it's not bad. The next book that I read was The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. I've been wanting to read this one for a little while because I heard it was good. I believe that Alex Black mentioned that actually and recommended it. I don't really have much to say about it other than I enjoyed reading about Kelly Bishop's life. I think she's a fascinating person and I would kind of like to know more about her. This next one is probably one that I'm going to have a lot to say about though, because it is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. And yeah, so whenever I lost the series which can't be named, I kind of latched onto a different one which I already loved as a hyperfixation, and that is The Hunger Games. Occasionally I will just sit there and read the original trilogy, which is back there, and I'll just read them several times over. So yeah, it's a problem. Anyway, I was so excited for this one because it's about Haymitch. You guys, I just sat here and filmed for like 5 minutes me talking about this damn book, and then go to hit the stop button and I didn't start recording. So those 5 minutes where I was just sitting here talking to this little rectangle, just talking my heart out. Anyway, yeah, people who were part of the fandom probably understand why I was so excited. We've wanted this one for a while. I think almost immediately after people read Catching Fire, they started writing so many fan fictions about this particular Quarter Quell. And I know that there were some really good fan videos out there. Yes, I am that invested that I've seen the fan videos, okay? So yeah, I was excited about this one. I know a lot of other people were too, and it didn't disappoint. Songbirds and Snakes, the other prequel, I thought it was fine. I thought it was borderline good in some places, but it lacked a heart, I feel like, because it circulated around this villain, and it was about what made Snow evil, essentially. And while I liked it, I do feel like the reasons behind it are pretty weak, and the parts that I enjoyed most about that one was the fact that it kind of showed how he influenced the games. Those were the parts that I found the most interesting. I didn't find the rest of it particularly enthralling. This one, however, is different. Sunrise on the Reaping is about Haymitch Abernathy, how he became the person he is. He is a surly alcoholic who eventually has to help out with this revolution. But we find out this is not his first rodeo. There is so much more to him than meets the eye. From reading the series, you can definitely see how he would have a very bleak backstory. This kind of hammers at home though. It also has a lot to say about recognizing propaganda, developing media literacy, and just some extremely important topics that we need right now. And given the demographic that this is aimed towards, I do feel like it's a pretty important book. I know that I keep on saying stuff like that, but the youth of today, they need some decent reading material. I am very much rambling, and I promise I'm going to stop. You should go read it though. Okay, more to actually say about the book. I didn't necessarily give it a 5-star because it is a prequel, and in my opinion, prequels almost never are as good as the original material. That being said, for a prequel, it is extremely good. The last book that I read in March was a doozy. It's House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danilewski. You can see by the way I'm holding this book, it's hefty. It's a heavy guy. This book, Sorry, I keep on having to restart. There's so much hype for this book. I will go ahead and say that. People are so hyped up about this book. They sing its praises all the time about, oh, you'll never understand it. You know, it's just too highbrow. And I'm gonna get so much hate for this. Please do not dox me. Please do not come to my home. But this book is overrated. Please don't kill me, I have a family. Now, I am not saying that it is straight up bad. I would not say that. I will, however, say that I straight up do not like the narrator, and not in a fun, unlikable narrator way. This is one where it's like, I don't understand why you are going off on these tangents, monsieur. I am so glad that you got to fulfill your crush by discovering your prostate, senor, but I don't understand what this has to do with the haunted house. The narrator is basically a detective who read this report called the Davidson Report, which is kind of about a haunted house scenario. Here's one more look. This book is heavy. I'm not holding it up the entire time, sorry. The detective reads the report, and then weird stuff starts happening to him too, and he kind of starts to spiral. That being said, he is not the focus of this. My girlfriend was kind of the one who convinced me to read this, and it's like, there's no real main narrative, which is true and fair. However, the part that I find most interesting, and the thing that I think can kind of function as the main narrative, the closest thing that we get to, is the Davidson Report. It is about the family who lives in this home. Whenever random hallways and doorways and things like that start to appear, at first it's basically just a closet, like making a closet deeper than it's supposed to be, but then even bigger openings start appearing. The kids start exploring them, which is kind of horrific given what we figure out later on. But yeah, so they start calling in people to explore this place to see how deep it goes. It changes. It continues to change, the entrance and the exit and the pathways in between, and eventually through their explorations they find a staircase and decide they want to see what's at the bottom. That was a bad idea. This is definitely a horror, and if you have claustrophobia or a deep fear of the dark, it will probably hit you pretty hard. The problem is that in the margins there are notes at the bottom of the page. These are written by the detective. Sometimes it's just stuff like reference information that we need. Other times it's several page long tangents about what's going on in this detective's life. Sometimes that stuff is kind of interesting, and then other times it's just about this exotic dancer named Thumper who he is obsessed with, and I cannot tell you how little I care. It takes away from everything else. He's so proud of the fact that he knows the word fuck too. He's just so proud that he knows that word, and he just uses it for absolutely everything. It's like a teenager who's finally allowed to cuss. And I think that's one gripe that I do have about some adult horror fiction. We get it. You are allowed to cuss now, and that must feel so freeing. But that doesn't mean you have to, and it doesn't mean that you need to be gratuitous with it or to use it to an egregious degree. Sorry, I have feelings. I'm not trying to talk shit about the author. I'm trying to talk shit about the character because I kind of hate him a little bit. I think the big problem is I have an issue when a story has to come to a skidding halt. The most interesting part of a story has to come to a skidding halt to talk about something that is completely off topic. This has nothing to do with the actual story. I would argue that there is like the smallest amount that he writes about that actually directly connects to the story, and the rest of it's just, I mean, it could have been a different book. It could have been. I don't understand why we needed to include this. His story could have been interesting. It had potential. Did not like. So we're grading these two separately. Johnny's content, I would give it like a D. maybe a D minus. I don't know. We're not even doing stars anymore, guys. It's like a D or a D minus. The Davidson report, pretty good. It's pretty good. It's nothing. It's so overrated, you guys. It really is. I would still give it like 4 stars just for the Davidson part alone. I do think that is an interesting story, and I can understand some of the hype behind this book. I can. But also I think that a lot of people are wrapped up in the novelty of it, which is fine. It's cool. It's an interesting read. And there's more to it than I can really communicate via video. And I do kind of recommend everyone to at least check it out, flip through, you know, maybe go to some of the websites that discuss, you know, there is more to it than I am letting on. I'm not saying it's not a creative book. It is immensely creative and almost a work of art to some extent, but if you are reading it for the story, one, there's more than one of those. There's more than one. There's more than 2. And just one of those, I only find one of those particularly interesting and good. I genuinely feel like someone's going to throw a flaming brick through my window. I feel like one of the biggest disservices we can do for ourselves is to just blindly go along with something that has so much hype without giving any actual critical input. I wanted to come on here and sing its praises because it is, okay, part of it is extremely good. Some of it, however, is very bad. So I guess the overall book, I would have to give like a 3-star, given that part of it got like a 2 stars and the rest of it got like a 4. I don't know. I guess, yeah, we'll give it 3 stars. I'm very conflicted about this book. I'm probably going to reread it at some point. Get it, check it out. It's fun for the novelty. Just don't go into it with the same expectations that I did, that this was going to be something that absolutely knocks your socks off and it's going to be like one of the most frightening things you've ever read. Some of it is genuinely disturbing. I'm not going to say that it's not. It could be considered genuinely scary to a lot of people as well, especially if you do have claustrophobia or an intense fear of the dark. If that's not necessarily something that bothers you, it's less so. Basically, not the scariest thing that I have read, but still genuinely scary. Anyway, that ends my rant video about House of Leaves. Sorry, I know I went off on a tangent. That is the end, though, of my reading wrap-up for February and March of 2025. I hope that you guys are staying safe out there and you're able to go out and enjoy some of this weather. If you live in North Carolina anyway, if you don't live in North Carolina, I don't know what the weather's like there, but here it's actually really nice. At any rate, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it way more than you know. If you feel like doing the whole like, share, and subscribe thing, that's up to you. I don't control your life. You're an autonomous being. One thing that I do need you to remember in this trying time is to remember to love yourself. Can't impress on you how important that is, okay? Do it. I'm going to zoom this out like you're flying away. Okay, bye!